Hey everyone, we're here for Spring EOC Training. The whole staff has already been trained in security prior to December testing, so we'll just review that quickly during training. Always during training, there's no substitute for reading the entire manual. This is just a shortened version for the sake of time. If you need my contact numbers, if you don't have them already, they're listed here. You can pause the video and grab them. And student testing assignments will be posted the day before testing throughout the normal multiple locations in the school. We just need to be careful that kids don't go to the exact same room every day because sometimes they think that's what they get to do. So make sure that they're looking every day. All right. There's some action items for the staff, so you know right away what you're in for. All staff must do this training except for cafeteria, custodial, and PALs. You must complete this training as if you were going to be any of the positions that are happening: monitor, test administrator, etc. And why? Because of COVID. You need to search all the spreadsheet tabs for your name and your room number. I'll show you how to do that later. Remember that Control F is your friend. Make sure that you share with your students prior to testing days where your classroom will be relocated if you're unfortunate enough to be one of those people. Have the kids take a screenshot of where they're supposed to go day to day. We will post it throughout the school in the testing area so they can't come in, but kids should know prior. There shouldn't be any confusion. Seek clarification from your department chair prior to asking me a question. They've spent many hours helping me make this plan, and I appreciate them very, very much. But always ask. I'd rather you ask than not. Number 5, come to terms with the fact that you will not have access to your Chromebooks on testing day. Just breathe in and breathe out. That's just how it is. Relocate your Chromebooks the afternoon prior to testing days as directed. I am counting on you guys to move the Chromebooks. Now, I don't expect a teacher to push it back and forth 5 days. We have students for a reason. Send 1 or 2 students, but be clear as to where it's supposed to go. Get your Chromebooks back on non-testing days if you want them, but they also need to go back on the following testing days. There's 5 days. Teachers who have testers in their rooms, please have your rooms test ready at the end of the day prior to testing. APs will be coming around to check your rooms. Make sure you take up any textbooks or any other materials that are in the testing area. Most rooms are going to have less than 30 kids, so we need the desks in rows by like 6 by 5 and spaced out as much as possible. If you're not involved in testing, think again. You are. If you're not on the list, you still have a job. If you're not testing or involved in testing during your conference period, you're going to have to walk through the testing area. I would like you to do it twice during testing and look for little red solo cups that might be outside of a hall door. That means the teacher needs a break. So instead of the sign on the door, we're going to have a little cup they put out. So when you look down the hallway, you can see that somebody needs a break. Thank you. And that'll be every day that we have testing. Please do that. All right, the APs are going to check certain rooms. They can look at that so you know who's coming to check you out. Here's the Chrome cart movement. There's a tab in the master spreadsheet with the information there. These are the specific people that I need. So Ethan Berger, his room is 1240. Every day for testing, I need him to take his cart to 1211. We need to have 2 carts in every room for backup. Okay, if your name is not listed here, you need to take your cart to the hallway near the library. That's where they're going to be stored so we can get extra ones if needed. And the only people that are the people that are in testing rooms, which are 1202 to 1233, there's no need to move your Chrome cart at all. Your testing room, your Chrome cart needs to stay in there. And when you are moving Chrome carts, make sure that you get them plugged in an area that's clear so we can move around. Plug them in every day. We've got to make sure we do that. These are our lifelines during testing. All right, things that are new this year. There's a lot because we are all online testing. We have the dates here on the left. You can read. And here I'm just repeating again. You can see it's in yellow. Any teacher on a conference period without an assignment should walk through the area twice. All students will be testing online this year. All Chromebooks will be used. Once a student logs into a test, the Chromebook is considered test material. So it's like a test book. And in the past, We didn't have students moving test books, walking around the room, going across the room to talk to the testing coordinator because there's a problem. The Chromebook is like a test book. And along with the test ticket, that's like an answer document. So we need to view those as secure materials. At the beginning of STAR, we all know the system crashed. It was the online dictionary is what they think caused it, so the function will be disabled, but we will have paper dictionaries available. Ms. Pruitt will make sure they're in student rooms. We may not have exactly a one-to-one, but if a student needs a dictionary, the test administrator needs to pass it from student to student if we get into that situation. Students cannot pass dictionaries from kid to kid. The Algebra 1 test has 3 calculators built into the test: basic calculator, scientific, and graphing, which is great. But this year, the Algebra 1 teachers have been using a pretty neat app called Desmos. It's another calculator, so on Algebra 1 test day, kids are going to have 2 laptops on their desk, one that has Desmos in the Desmos mode and one that has the STAR test. Text-to-speech will be used to cover all oral accommodations. Nobody will be getting a face-to-face person reading to them. Students with spelling assistance, basic transcribing, or co-writer tools, that's in a speech-to-text tool, which is new this year. So those students are all in one room and they'll have a headphone with a microphone so they can actually speak their essay if they want to. It's pretty neat. All right, test security, I've already reviewed that. Just make sure that the kids are not moving Chromebooks when they're logged into the test or walking around with test tickets. There's 2 different kind of irregularities that can happen on a test day. Procedural ones would be like we gave the kid the wrong test, or the teacher went over the time. But then they're serious, like helping a student answer questions. That's a serious violation, and your Texas license could be on the line. Or discussing information that's in the test, like, oh, I saw the prompt. What did you think? You think the kids are going to do well or not? We can't even talk about that at all. You got to act like you saw nothing, but you also have to monitor it well. How to access the STAR testing app on the Chromebook. What you'll do is simple. Open the Chromebook, do not log in, choose the word apps from the bottom left-hand corner of the computer. You'll choose the STAR app and the program will run. I suggest strongly that when you get into your testing room, you start opening all the computers and doing that. Because once you open them and go to that app, even if the computer times itself out, when you open it back up, it should go directly there. So get all those on the desk, opened up, but do not put test tickets down until right before you read instructions. Troubleshooting with the Chromebooks. If the student's already logged in and there's an issue, turn it off, turn it back on. Is there any type of issue? Always turn it off and turn it back on. Still an issue? Try another Chromebook. Still an issue? It's probably a system-wide server or internet error, and you just need to wait. If we lose connectivity for too long, we need to make sure that we're recording that time. I would put it on the student's test ticket if they're having an issue, so we know how much time they lost in case we have to give it back to them. Speaking of time, the English tests are 5 hours, 5 English, 5. And the other 3 subjects, algebra, biology, and U.S. history, are 4 hours. We don't need to overtime or undertime anybody's test. There will be a sign in your bin each day with the time limit for that test. Still speaking of timing, when you're in the room, you need to be announcing and writing on the board how much time is left to test hourly. And then when it gets closer to the end, especially this year with all online, and if kids are going to be writing their essay out by hand, you need to be giving them reminders in the last hour, every 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. If a kid in your room ends up not getting their essay typed in, it leads me to believe that maybe you weren't giving them the reminders of time. So please don't let a kid get into that situation. Give them their reminders. This is what it's going to look like once you open the app up. The students are going to go to the summative assessment. Make sure that that's where they go. And here's what their test ticket's going to look like. It has the subject, the group, the name, the birthday, and what kind of supports they're going to have. And they have 3 items that they have to use to log in. Along with that, we're talking about the student, what kind of supports they have. There's 4 kinds that our kids will be getting. It's text to speech. Students will need earbuds for that. Content and language supports, which is like a rollover support. It like clarifies a word. So as any student with content and language supports doesn't need earphones or anything, they just have that built in. They can be in any type of room. Spelling assistance, and then speech to text, which I mentioned earlier. The students will get a headset with a mic. And these are the little initials that they use for them. They will be on their test ticket. Accessibility features are things all students can get, like small group reminders to stay on task, etc. That will not be printed on the test ticket, but it will be on the accommodation page in your bin. Here's what all the online tools look like in the back of your EOC manual. There's a legend of what they do. During the test, if a kid says, "What does this thing do?" you can show them how, describe to them what it is and how to use it, but you cannot actually do it for them. So you can reference it in the back of your manual if a student has a question. Speech to text, text to speech tool is pretty neat. Kids can change the volume, the speaking rate. There's all these great things that they can use. They can do just click a word instead of having it read the whole thing. Most of the students who have access to this are very familiar with it. And the STAR app, the STAR program has a really good text-to-speech tool. On the English test, during the reading selections and the editing selections and editing questions, they are not allowed to be read, even on the paper test. So the student might not be used to that necessarily, but there'll be this little speaker guy with the red line through him. That's when they can't, the tool will not be active when they're on in the editing section or just reading the actual story. Just a couple clarifications from TEA about the online tools. Once the test has started, you cannot remind students to use their tools. So all of that has to happen before you read your directions, telling them, you have these tools accessible. They're accessible throughout the test at these times. Once we start testing, I cannot remind you to use them. So make sure you preload that with the kids. And then the second bullet here, we cannot give a paper copy of the online tools to the students, but like I mentioned, you can reference the back of your book if a student has a question about how to use it. Just reviewing again, Algebra 1 has a Desmos app that they will be using. There's a video right here that Ms. Schrant was nice enough to record just to kind of run you through some of the things. Because the savvy students could hop out and hop back in and, go Google something. But this is where we're going to have to really, really, really be careful about monitoring, especially at Algebra Day. So there is this video to watch. I trust that you'll go back and watch it if you're an algebra tester. On the next screen here, this is the gist of what you're going to see in the video. When the students are in Desmos, there's a green bar that runs across the top, and it tells you what kind of mode it is. Texas Star is what you should see all the time. If you don't see that, that's a problem. You tell the student to get out of there and get back into Texas Star and make sure you watch them do it. And if they get in there again, we're going to ask them to stop testing and invalidate their test. Okay? Most students this isn't going to be a big deal. We just need to make you aware of it. And you need to monitor very, very well on testing day, especially algebra. Something new this year, your testing bins. I want you to come prior to testing to look through your bin, account for your tickets, look at your roster, ask any questions. I will be in the testing room all day, the day prior to testing, so you can just come in there and check it out so that on the morning of testing, you can just grab your bin and go. That way we won't have a lot of confusion and questions in the morning, or there was traffic, or I'm sorry I was late, all this kind of stuff. It'll be much smoother. I think you'll like it. Lunches and breaks, everybody's favorite question. For the English exams on the 27th and the 29th, we're going to have every testing room stop at 10:15. Everybody needs to stop. Kids can't keep going. If one wants to keep going, we can't do that. Everyone's stopping from 10:15 to 10:30. This is something you should tell the students prior to starting the test so they can kind of plan their time. Then you might want to say at 10 o'clock, okay, remember, we're taking a break in 15 minutes, so make sure you're not in the middle of anything. The students will pause the test, close the Chromebook, and then they can take a break quietly. They can access their snacks away from the testing area, and they cannot discuss anything on the test. It is very vital that you're monitoring the students and that they understand that this is a quiet time, but it's also a break. If a student wants to stand up and stretch, or if they want to stand outside in the hallway to eat a snack or just to get out of the room, they can, but they must do it silently. Any student who is not silent in the hallway will be asked to return to the room. We're not messing around with that. Okay, we will have some snacks available for the students. If they want to eat them, please return uneaten snacks so we can use them for the next day. Do not hoard them. Testers are going to eat during 6th period, which is nice. It's kind of a longer lunch. And then it gives administrators time to get their bins back and then take their lunch as well. Test administrators with 6th period non-testing students will send their students to the auxiliary gym for 6th period only if we have anybody in that situation, but I'm pretty sure that everybody is covered in that situation. But if we have any stragglers, that's where they'll go. Non-testers will go to their regularly assigned lunch on those days. So they'll be smaller lunches. And everyone will go to 7th period. That's English day only. On Algebra, Biology, and U.S. History Day, lunch will happen during C and D. For testers, on that day, we will assign you a lunch on your time limit policy. Depending upon when you start and when your stop time is, we'll make a decision about your lunch. If your students are going to go to C lunch, that means they're going to be returning to the classroom. So make sure that you're back in there to receive them. Students who go to D lunch, obviously they will not return to the classroom. And then on those days, non-testers will go to their regularly assigned, they won't go to their regularly assigned lunch. We need to change that. Mark is going to get a plan together of when you should go to lunch. And then everyone will go to 6th and 7th periods. Rosters, seating charts, and attendance. Every bin will just have one main roster where you will do your seating chart and take attendance. Please don't write A's and X's. There's 2 columns that are present and absent. Just check the boxes. And you do not need, I don't want you to tape your attendance to the door. Okay? You're just going to keep that. That's your one master materials control form. And then kids who are absent, we will come collect their tickets. Okay? Don't tape their tickets to the door because that's like taping a test book to the door. You don't want to do that. We will come in the room and we will collect those absent student test tickets and use that for our attendance. You have an accommodations roster. Some people will, some people won't. It's your duty to make sure that you're familiar with all the supports the student gets and that you share the supports with the student. Also distributing earbuds or headphones with microphone to the proper students. That page that is the accommodation page, you need to sign and date all the pages. That's saying that you understand what the students get and you've shared the information with them. If there's a kid who thinks they're missing a support, always contact me immediately. We take that seriously. Test day, you're going to have 3 signs. This time limit one is the biggie that the district is always looking for when their monitor comes around. Please fill this out accurately. It drives them crazy when you don't. The electronics policy needs to be posted. Also, the do not disturb sign. And number 4, the time limit policy for the day. It's different for each test. English 5 hours and 4 hours for the others. Test administrator duties and student duties. Test administrators need to follow all instructions, maintain security, monitor the room, make sure the kids have everything that they need and that you're monitoring their progress. Okay, when the student gets to the end of the test, there'll be a big stop sign. You got to make sure that students are submitting the test, not just closing the Chromebook. They must submit their test. That's a big piece of online testing because once the student leaves the classroom, we can't click submit for them. We have to go find the student and they have to log back in and submit it. So that's a big part of your monitoring duties for online testing. Students should remain seated. They should be quiet. The only kids that are leaving the room at the end of testing are virtual students. They can leave immediately. Otherwise, students can sit silently or read a book until the rest of the room is done. Misbehavior from students will not be tolerated. One warning, in my opinion, is enough. If a student is still misbehaving or not following instructions after that, please contact an administrator for assistance. All right, online instructions. In your manual, there's instructions for paper and online. We are not doing paper. No, no, no. We are doing online, and it starts at page 63. And it's the same directions for all 5 tests, but there's lots of little bullets that you have to read depending upon which test is being given. So I'm going to walk through that right now. All right, here we go. Here, test administration directions. You should highlight what you need to read by subject. You see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different colors here. If you're testing all 5 tests, which one person is, and I appreciate her, Miss Epps, her book should be very prettily colored because there's different wide call-out boxes depending upon what type of testing room you have. You should highlight it prior to testing. So here you can kind of see this is for Algebra 1, this is for Biology, this is for U.S. History. Make sure that you're highlighting whatever pertains to the test for that day. Just a little bit of kind of a legend, the narrow call-out boxes are just information for you, and the wide ones that are bold are the ones that need to be read, and it depends upon what subject if it needs to be read. Please be mindful of that. Here's one thing before you start online testing, it gives a guidance of what you should do. You should pass out, before you read the directions, you're going to pass out tickets, scratch paper, pencils, dictionaries, headphones, and then you're going to start reading the instructions. You're not going to place the test ticket on the kid's desk. No, we don't want them logging in before you start reading instructions, so please make sure that you do that. And again, here just showing you need to know that the students need to know what supports they have. Please make sure that they do. There's a part about verifying your student name on the top of the test. And the honor statement, students don't have to do it, but there's a statement you can read to them if they refuse. Either way, they're still taking their test. Again, here they're verifying their name and birth date. I wrote it 3 times. It's important. That way you know the kid has the correct test ticket. We have a couple of sets of twins and triplets in the building. We need to be careful about that. For the English 1 or 2 test, any student can ask you, the students can handwrite their essay if they want to, but the actual essay needs to be typed into the essay box on the Chromebook prior to the end of testing. You don't want a kid to wait to the end. We have one almost every test session, no matter which one we're doing. The kid waits to the end, and then once time has expired, they think they can put their answers or their essay into the test. That is not true. Everything must be in the test and submitted before the end of time. Please don't let a student get into that situation. Test administration directions, again, I'm going to repeat myself. It's important. Whatever supports the students have, make sure that you share that part of the directions with them. For English 1 and 2, students can ask you to read the writing prompt out loud to them. Just purely read it. Not as a whole group, but just as with an individual student over their shoulder. I'm not sure that many students ask for this, but you can read the prompt to them, but you cannot elaborate, help them write it, or anything. Just purely reading the prompt. Students like to ask a lot of questions during testing, and it's hard sometimes when you have a student that you're used to helping in the classroom, and they're like, "Miss, what does this mean?" Or "How do I do this?" You say, "I cannot help you, or I cannot answer that for you. You just need to do the best that you can." It's a nice blanket statement, and I feel bad, but we can't help. Breaks. With the online test, when the student takes a break, they should push the pause button, and they can close their Chromebook. Monitor this carefully. When we go on the break for English, students need to pause their tests and they can close it. The test will time out after 30 minutes, and if that does happen, which it shouldn't, the student just needs to log back into the test. Again, here, remind you that submitting at the end of the test is different than pausing it. Test security. We have a test security at a glance. It's just everything you need to know about testing day. It's just good to have as a review, since we've already done security training. That will be in your test bin. All right, last thing here, hall monitors. You've been assigned a certain location, but I would like you to check in with me each day prior to 7:15. So in case there's any updates or changes, and I'll just tell you where your location is, and you're going to stay in that location. Monitor the hallways and restrooms. Keep students quiet during restroom breaks. I suggest propping the restroom doors open so that you can monitor with your ear what's going on. Most students shouldn't be in there for more than a minute or two. During that big 15-minute break, if we have a dash for the restrooms during the snack break, you can let more than one student in, but make sure that the door is propped open and you tell them that there's no talking in the restroom and that they need to get their business done quickly. School-wide emergencies, if we have a fire alarm or maybe a bad weather day, safety and security of the student is priority number one. You can just tell the students to close their Chromebooks and leave their test tickets. Just leave them, and walk out the room. Teachers don't need to go around and collect it all and take it with you. I don't want to see you outside with a bin full of test tickets and Chromebooks. I don't want that. Just leave it in this. It's an emergency, so things are different during that time. And then we'll assess what happens after the emergency, if we're going to go back to testing or we might have to test another day. Okay, that's the last slide. If you have any questions, please let me know.